Hello viewer and welcome to Bottom Line KE. My name is Jupiter Mayaka and today we're focusing on curfew implementation nightmare, looking at the scenario on Saturday and Sunday that the social media and Kenyans are angry about the same. On set today we have Jake Sangwera, who is a lawyer and at the same time who is a political analyst. To my far end is Shem Kinge, who is also a political scientist and at the same time an activist on the same. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Yes, we are talking about the curfew implementation nightmare. You've seen social media, Kenyans are angry, especially the Nairobians. Do they have the right to be angry?
Yes, of course, Kenyans have a right to be angry because of the manner in which the government is implementing that curfew. It is somehow inhuman and it seeks to degrade their dignity. Like you saw in what happened on Saturday, where Kenyans are locked up on the road up to very late night. That was completely uncalled for. They should have used other mechanisms like opening more roadblocks for the same, so that Kenyans don't gather so many of them at one place. They have resources at their disposal. They should have used other mechanisms to try and implement or enforce that restriction. Yeah.
Shem,
Yes.
what's your point on this?
Kenyans have a right to be angry. For one, I would say that they were actually coming on. Then they were coming from the businesses, building the economy, trying to make sure that again they are able to give back to the government that has actually been heavily overtaxing them. But in this case, they should have actually given a clear notice. And actually, there should have actually been measures, which I feel that the Ministry of Interior failed to make sure that they were able to communicate on time, so that these people have actually been prepared in advance. Despite having the curfew at exactly 8,
Yes.
they were actually supposed to make sure that it was clear. At this particular time, these are the measures that you're going to take. This is what we expect to do as a government. But you cannot actually wake up one morning and then you come up with an indecisive, because that's what you can call an indecisive action. And then you actually want to make sure that you are able to make sure that you are putting that in place. That one, I'd say that they really failed, because I tell you for free, the Kenyan economy, 32% of it is actually driven by the service industry. Majority of these people that are actually locked up in the traffic, majority of them, they were coming up to be able to, they were actually trying their means and ways to make sure that they're able to give back to the government actually that relies heavily on them. Looking at it, we are a country that you cannot say that it can really support these individuals. It can really make sure that they'll actually at their homes in time and they'll be able to support. So that means it actually tells you the number of Kenyans that you saw on Saturday. It tells you that they were no longer comfortable in keeping time, staying in their places, making sure that they are at their comfort zone, knowing that the government will still be able to come and help them. So it only tells you that these people were actually out to make sure that they're able to meet their demands, to make sure that they're able to put their resources together, so at least to be able to keep on moving at this pandemic period. So it tells you that the government itself should have actually been considerate. It should have actually made sure that there was a prior communication. It should have actually made sure that the instruments of power that they're using, they are used to the best interest of the people. So basically, that's what I find it was uncalled for.
You were talking about being given a notice.
Yes.
But at the same time, you know, the president went public and said that the curfew starts exactly at 8. So everyone knows that the curfew starts exactly at 8. Even the OCPD for Kasarani, when the other day he was talking, he said that everyone knows it's in public domain.
Sure.
That by 8 you're supposed to be in the house. So which notice again are we talking about?
Okay, there is a public notice, of course, for the same. The president has addressed himself according to the same. And but every situation must be looked separately. Like in that case, we support that people must follow regulations and policies passed by government. And the curfew is good. We can't condemn it because it is something that is practiced now across the world. But each circumstances must be looked at separately. Like in that particular case, you saw that there were sick people, there were ambulances, there were mothers that needed attention. Then they were put together, mixed up with people, probably who could have at least, who were not, you couldn't put them in the same category because they really needed attention, for example. So every situation must be looked at separately. And therefore, I think that level, what the police were doing were not correct. It is completely something that was unnecessary at that particular time. But I have said that I support that we must obey the policy passed by government, and this common practice now, not only in Kenya. If you look across the world, for example, if you check in India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has enforced a curfew there, and it is being enforced by police in almost every part of that country, in spite of the fact that India has the vaccine. If you check in United Kingdom, there is a lockdown and there is curfew, and it is enforced by police, in spite of the fact that in UK they produce a vaccine which we are relying. They are manufacturing the vaccine, but they have a lockdown and they have a curfew. And that is observed by everybody, including those people who are at very high level. You saw on Saturday that even the people from the royal family obey and respect the protocols which have been given by Ministry of Health in that country. Yes. During the burial of the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip. You saw that the number was minimized to 30. That is about only family members. And so they are obeying. So there is no reason why we should condemn it here in Kenya. And indeed, when we rely on vaccine from those countries which are themselves enforcing the curfew and enforcing the lockdown, it is so something that we must, as citizens of Kenya, obey and observe as required by the ministry. It is for the best interest of the country, but where we differ with the enforcement agencies is the manner in which they are doing it. Mm-hmm. The manner in which they are doing it is completely degrading on the dignity of citizens of Kenya, and that one must be condemned at every level.
Can we also say that we Kenyans are defiant of the rules and laws that are put in place?
I want to disagree with that. Because I think at all times laws, policies actually put in place to be followed. But in whichever case, the things again that we have to look at. Personally, the policy makers have to look at, is this adherable? Is this a policy again that actually is going to work? Because you have to look at many factors. Matters economy, you have to consider the social aspect. Those are things again that you have really to make sure that you are able to consider, because you cannot just come up with a policy that is unfavorable to a third world country, to a country that is developing, to a country that cannot be able to sustain itself. So there are policies again that you have to look at. So I don't want to look at it in an angle that Kenyans at some point are really, they defy all these sorts of rules and regulation put in place. Mm-hmm. But looking at it, I would say that one, the moment that you are able to start using that term, or rather that terminology, mm-hmm. it only means that we are being harsh to these Kenyans. It only tells that we are not considering these other aspects, because they have actually to be also looked at in a broader perspective. Mm-hmm. One, as I said earlier, for countries that rely on service industry, for country that relies on agriculture, there are other factors that you have to look at, because there is no way that you actually look at it in 4 to 7 p.m. To 8 p.m. curfew. Looking at it, it only tells you that we are not at a level that we could say that we are industrialized, to a level that we'll be able to support our economy, that we'll be able to support our SMEs, and make sure that these are people that we have looked at their interest. It only tells you that we still have to look at a way that it favors the SMEs, it favors the people, again, the agricultural sector, it also favors the people in affects the service industry because we have a policy that we have, which actually I would say it's more of a corporate and also public policy. We'll find most of these institutions, we have an 8-hour working system. So it tells you that that one, majority of the Kenyans tend even to go past those hours to make sure that they're able to feed their families, they're able to put up something on the tables, and basically to look also at their social aspects as well. So it tells you one, that we are not defiant people, but the rules and regulations that have been set in place, and the persons again that are trying to implement these policies again, that do not consider it. Two, they did not also get and seek the opinion of Kenyans at, and understand if this was actually the best placed idea of having a curfew at exactly 8. So it tells you there is a miss somewhere, and things are not put in place as they ought to be. So that's one thing that I think they should have actually tried to look and analyze in the best way possible. So I really don't want to agree and say that Kenyans are defiant, but I think there should be a way that you can work this thing out.
They can even easily come on board. The someone that we ask, the first time there was a curfew, it was at 7 p.m. And people were really home at that particular point. They could not be found on the roads unless essential services. Then how come we are not meeting the 8 p.m.?
The situation has become so dire, and you can understand the situation where Kenyans are. Since last year, when Corona was announced in Kenya, there has been a very, very big challenge at workplaces. The businesses people are doing are now closed. The economy has become very tough. The government enforced these curfews and lockdown, and they did not come up with the means of cushioning Kenyans. So they have to go out there and look for something to eat, because many of them relied on evening time. That's when they were doing business. For example, those who doing business around the city here, they were waiting for people from work to come and buy something. They get something to take for their children home. That is very different. So they have gone out of their way to try and look for means to try and eke their life. So not everybody who is found outside during curfew time is coming from bar, and this is something which now I think the police are misplaced. They think that people who are found outside curfew time, they are coming from taking alcohol and such things. Some of these people are just people who are trying to eke their life out to have a living. So it is not something that, and if you check through what is happening around the country, you will notice that as much as we are emphasizing so much on ordinary Kenyans not observing these curfews, the politicians, leaders themselves, they are violating it. They are having meetings every time. Yesterday, I was watching, and I understand that there were meetings of members of parliament from the region of Mount Kenya at a place. You ask yourself, where did they pass? Because the other day you saw them again in another place. These people are not coming from one area. Some of them traverse Nairobi and those counties to meet. They're not leading by example, okay? And if you check through again, you will notice that the planes, for instance, are always on course. But ordinary citizens who are using these ordinary means like public transport, the matatus, where actually you can say social distance is kept in those matatus, we are being told that this is where corona spreads more, as opposed to planes where we know there is no social distance, and they are traversing from one county to another. So there is no equality in terms of implementation of this. I think that they appear to be very harsh on the ordinary person there. You see, there was a challenge. People are talking about middle class and poor guys down there. And the middle class were the ones who were driving cars. They were the ones who were bringing these issues. And those poor people who don't drive, I think they were watching how they are dealing with the government, because if it were the poor people, I know they will have used different mechanisms. So they are waiting for a revolution to see from the middle class. But I think the government generally is the manner in which it is enforcing this curfew is quite harsh on the ordinary citizen, and which is something that we must rebuke at all levels.
On Saturday,
Yes.
they blocked without, and afterwards, after a public outcry, they came out and released the people to go. So
Yes.
yesterday they were saying that on Saturday you were given a warning.
Yes.
So on Sunday you're not supposed to give any excuse as to why you're still on the road. You think that was maybe could help, or it's a warning that, what, next time it's going to be dire consequences if you do this?
Yeah, see, there is a law in place, and we agree there is a law that curfew starts at 8. That is a law, and the work of the police is to implement it. So what they do, instead of detaining people up to midnight, morning, that will not, that will bring about other things. For example, there are other diseases that may emerge. For instance, diseases which are related to cold. There are people who have various diseases who need medication. If you detain them there and they gather in large numbers, don't you think that they are going to spread even corona more? So I think what you can do is to issue warnings and even summons to respect people, because there must be a judicial way of dealing with people who have violated the law. Any other means like detaining people up to midnight is extrajudicial, and that one must not be accepted at all. That one that will be now being too much on ordinary Kenyan.
Asham, is it going against human rights and the constitution at large?
Yeah, sure it is. And I think, one, as my colleague said, the aspect of detaining people unnecessarily, I'll say that is a violation of human rights. Two, you also, some of those people actually needed to access their basic human rights. Like the case that we saw of an ambulance that was denied an access.
Yeah.
Do you say that that was also a violation? We saw people who actually had permits of essential services that was supposed to deliver foods. So on the other side, there were people who were denied access to, food and also medical services that were much needed. So we'd say much of it, there was an aspect of violation. But in whichever case we feel that the government should go back to the drawing board, let them look at a way of analyzing and see if the curfew until 8 is workable or if it's not. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't mean that only curfews are spread during the past 8 hours, past 2 hours, which you normally know it's during the dark. So it just tells you that there are other ways of actually dealing with it. So by it is to make sure that all the laws and regulations that governs the COVID-19, that they are followed, they are adhered to. And then make sure that at least we're able to move on and live and agree that the corona or COVID-19 is here. So we have to adjust, and then we have to agree that it's with us. Then let's look for a way that we can actually be able to see we can still keep moving as we also take measures and also precaution. So at least to make sure that we have opened up the economy, people are able also to be able to really go back to their businesses and the official things that we were doing earlier before. Because what I understand, you could be thinking that you're helping by introducing such measures. But as you know well, at any given time that you are able to make sure that you have actually been able to pull at a hole the most basic and fundamental things that any other human being would want, then tells you that there will be, they'll retaliate. There'll also be people who will actually be agitated and they'll come out. And some of these things, again, they'll push them. And tell you that you'll be at a position that you'll not be able even to control these people that actually are putting those measures and regulations to make sure that you're able to be able to contain them. So in whichever case, I think the best thing that the government should do is go back to the drawing board. Let them look at a way of actually making sure that that the hours that you're able to give, that these Kenyans are able to meet their demands, their water views, and make sure that they are at position that they can be able to keep on their lives moving. So in this case, I'd say that we really have to go back to the drawing board, see what we can really be able to do.
Okay. Do you think maybe the public should be involved in this so that they give their views, because they're business people all around? I want to read some of the tweets that were on concerning the curfew. KHCR, that's Kenya Human Rights Commission, says condemns the abrupt reduction of a roadblock along Thika Road. And it's unconscious, there is no excuse for punishing civilians because the government has failed to respond to the challenges facing Kenyans due to the imposed restrictions.
I agree completely with the KNHCR. I completely agree. As I have said, there was deliberate abuse of the rights of Kenyans, and the Human Rights Commission must speak to the same, and serious leaders must speak to the same. They must condemn the acts of the police at that particular level. But I want to say this: as much as we have to condemn, like he has said, that we need to go back to the drawing table and consult Kenyans about the time. The president and his government are also listening to what Kenyans are talking about. But it may not reach a time when we may really sit down and have a discussion about the time. The fact that we elected a government in place, it should be very considerate when they're passing policies. If you check around the world, those such kind of policies, decisions as to when curfew should start, are not issues which are subjected to public discussion. It is a policy passed by government, direct. If you check in the United Kingdom, when Boris Johnson was making that decision, he did not call for a public discussion for the same. He just said that we think, with the advice I have received as a Prime Minister of UK, I think curfew will start from this particular time. It doesn't need the same case across the world. If you check US, and there were demonstrations in the US, for instance, when curfew during last year and up to early this year, people were demonstrating against lockdown and curfew. But you see, a government must stand very firm, because it is expected that a government elected by people is having the interest of the Kenyans, of the people that elected it. So when government cannot also not sit there and say that we need to consult every time. It just needs to be considerate whenever it is doing. And you see, even here across our neighbors, there are lockdowns and there are curfews there. For example, in Uganda. In Uganda, the key to your car is taken, and you are kept, you are arrested and detained there. Them they are even more harsh than what we see here, where you can sleep in your car. Them they are very harsh. So across the world, implementation of curfew is not something that is subject to public discussion with the government that is passing it. But people of respective countries can subject pressure to the government to be considerate in a manner in which it is, and it is expected, so that government should be considerate in doing so. And when you lock people and when you put curfew, you must ensure that your people that you serve are cautioned from the challenges they have in terms of services that they require. So if you subject them, if you lock them and you put curfews for them and they are hungry, they will turn against you and there will be a revolution to put you away. So that is how a revolution.
But still on the same, I don't think there is need to have a violation of human rights.
Yes,
because at the end of the day, they're entitled to those basic needs and that they really need to access. So one, there is no way that will come as our third world country. Try copy a system that is working in a first world and then trying to implement it here. One, we know that we have a challenge of accessing the basic commodities that we need. Two, we have a country that we have people living below $1. So it just tells you automatically that you cannot be able to go copy some rules and regulations and then try bring here and implement them. One, I'll tell you for free, as we're speaking now, there are counties that have been affected. In fact, there will be severe drought I don't want to call it a famine, but understand there'll be drought.
Yes.
It tells you in a third world country, if you're able to shut or not to rely most on, then in line of trying to put regulations and consulting in the first world, now they're doing about it, and then you're trying to implement here. And then there are some bodies also trying to push you. That is the only way to go about it. If actually you're not able to follow A, B, C, D, then you're not going to give you funds on combating the COVID-19. So it tells you, as a country, there are things again that we're failing, that we're not consulting widely, that we're not looking at it. Because you cannot compare ourselves to a level, for example, of countries that are like you mentioned, UK, India, and the rest, and trying to bring in that, trying to effect the same rules and roles here. One, for a country like, for example, give you China. If you speak of China, even if to take those measures that we're taking here, I can tell you for free, the country itself has already put measures that are needed. In fact, for them, they have a granary that is working for them, that will work for them for over 10 years. So it tells you here, within a third world country, we have an issue, basically, that speak of actually feeding our people. We can no longer be able to offer the basic needs that they want. It tells you that we not even be able to even supply medical facilities over that which we normally consider them as basic. So it tells you there are things again that you have to go back and look at them. Then come here, then see what can work for us and what cannot work for us.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that. We're taking a short break on Bottom Line KE. We will be right back after this break, but you can be part of this conversation by sending your SMS to 20374, or you can visit our social media handles, and we continue with the discussion there. Should the government review the curfew implementation structure? Welcome back to Bottom Line KE on Look Up TV. My name is Jupiter Mayaka, and today in studio we're talking about curfew implementation nightmare, considering the state that was during the weekend. Thika Road, Mombasa Road, that is Kayole Junction, there was Coptic and those kind of stuff. And in studio today we have Jacob Sangwara, who is a political analyst and lawyer, and then we have Shem King, who is a political scientist and at the same time an activist. Welcome back, gentlemen, for the second bit of our discussion.
Thank you very much.
When we went for a break, you were talking about a revolution.
Yes, yes.
In the social media, I saw people saying that you cannot just do a revolution when you're talking on Twitter.
Yes.
You ought to go to the streets, be tear gassed, and then that you will say, no, there is a revolution. But on Twitter, there's nothing like that is going to happen. Do you think that a revolution can come from, curfew implementation nightmare that we're having right now?
First of all, we need to emphasize that curfew should not be seen from a negative side. You see, this is not a Kenyan issue. This is a world pandemic. This is a pandemic. It's a pandemic because it's universal. It's across every country in the world. And so these are things which are happening across the world. It's not only Kenya. So as much as we really want to look at it that way, the way we are looking at it, we must see it from a universal manner, that it is best practice, that every government should put these measures as member of United Nations, and the world is watching. We require to have these measures put in place. But in terms of revolution, I think it may not achieve anything in social media and on just all those platforms on social media. It may not achieve so much as the normal revolutions take place, where people go to the streets, 1 million plus of them, and they threaten the government and finally either remove a government in place out of the office. That is not possible when you tweet, another one tweet, like that. And you see, most of the time there must be coordination if we want to achieve something successful in terms of revolution. Reduce it from social media as much as you have to. You use all those platforms. You have to deal with the ordinary people who are not on Twitter or not on Facebook. And somebody criticized these people, the middle class, over the weekend. They were talking of a revolution. And one said that, when they were demonstrating in 2017 against the election of President Uhuru Kenyatta, the middle class were against that demonstration which was happening in Nairobi every Monday and every time. They were criticizing that these people are bringing challenges to our economy. They are sabotaging our business in town. They are so this time round, it is middle class who are caught in the same scenario with police, and so the ordinary poor guys down there were asking them that, now look, when you were criticizing us this way, you see. So there must be a coordination between the people whom we call middle class and the poor. All of them must accept there's a problem and work together. But not when this class wants to do this one. For you to remove a government in place through a revolution, you would require support, total support from both classes. Okay? So that's what I'm saying. It is good for Kenyans to express their agitation on social media. The government in place, as it is listening, it is hearing that Kenyans are not happy with what is going on. There's no problem, but it may not end up to a revolution finally. But revolutions are started small bits like that, and they may end up, if they don't do something, they may find themselves in a very awkward position. Yes.
Shame on the same. And you also talk about almost everything in Kenya, we almost politicize it, because Kenyans on social media will come through and say, you know what, you chose this government.
Yes.
Deal with it. Tumalize kumi pamoja.
But they forget they are still part of us. So but I would say that one, naturally I think if there are political people that have ever engaged and seen, they are Kenyans. They do politicize everything that is in place. That's why you find the majority of Kenyans are political analysts. Everyone is a political scientist on his own. Everyone is law implemented by his own. So find that Kenyans, when it comes to matters politics, definitely I tell you for free that everyone is a political scientist on his own, is a political analyst on his own. So generally that's Kenyans. But I want to speak on the same thing that I was talking about revolution. Revolution needs courageous people. Revolution needs selfless people. Revolution cannot be led by people who are not ready to help a country in a form that they are in solidarity with it. But I'll tell you for free that one, a revolution is not a solution to the challenges that we're facing. Two, people must understand what revolution is. Revolution is not all about waking up, marching the streets, overthrowing government. Then once you've actually been able to do the garbage, you bring another one, so it will be a system of garbage in, garbage out, revolution today, revolution tomorrow, So these are things, again, that we should look at them in a broader perspective. So one, how do we even start a revolution? A revolution can only come when you as a voter, when you as an individual, when you as a Kenyan, you feel that you have that entitlement, when you feel that I have to do this in solidarity, when you feel that I have to really do this to save my generation, to save my next generation that also be coming tomorrow. So it only means that you can only do that by exercising the mandate that have been given by the Constitution through voting. So what have we been doing? Most of us don't take even time to vet the people that we have in place. We don't take time to analyze and look, is this the government, is this the people that we need to put them in place? Do they even fit for the public office? Are we even ourselves following the Constitution as Kenyans? So these are things, again, that we should look at them. But that is definitely starts with us. So this is why we should look and make sure that we are able to work on the few things that Kenyans need. Then we can be able now to move on, that we can now be able to put a government in place that this one shall be able to attend and look at the issues of Kenyans. I'll give you a historical issue that actually happened. That was in 2002. People were tired of the dictatorial tendency that was there. They were actually tired of a government that was unaccountable, that never gave Kenyans accountability. They were tired of a government that actually practiced the extrajudicial killings. So, and actually they came as one. They put all their differences aside, and they were able to put a government in place in 2002 that actually was able to serve their needs. If you go out there, people speak of a lesser corrupt government, a government that was able to build infrastructures, to bring infrastructures in place, a government that was able to support the SMEs, a government that was able to move a negative economy to a point of 7%. So it tells you when the people come together, when the people put their energy and they're able to push for certain things, then that means that is the genesis of transformation. So this is what we need. This is what we need to see ourselves. Because nowadays, looking at it, we have legislature that is, I would say it's a rubber stamp. So in everything that actually the executive brings aboard, the only thing that they do is to make sure that they're able to rubber stamp what the executive intends or rather push them to do. So the work of the oversight legislation, you find that these people are unable to actually exercise what is required of them, what is mandated of them, and what is needed of them by the Kenyans. So what we have today is a rubber stamp for the executive. So when all these issues are rising, when all Kenyans are crying, oh, we should do ABCD, the cost of living, what have you and what have you, we have a legislature that is not able to look at Kenyan needs, Kenyan issues as they ought to do. So we still have an issue. I don't see a revolution that will come tomorrow. I don't see a revolution that will come and be able to put a government that they feel that this government will be accountable. I don't see that. It is until we ourselves, we decide to take positions, we decide to take charge and make sure that we ourselves first be accountable. That will be the genesis of a proper revolution that will be in place. So we really don't have to go to the French way, the French Revolution. We don't have to go to the Arab Spring as we saw it. So there is more other alternative ways that we can be able to fix this nation. So for my case, I find that it's more of us. It's we the citizens, it's we the people, it's we the common mwananchi. Make sure that we take charge and then we see the rest of these other things come in place.
Okay.
See, in the past, I think 2 weeks ago, again, Kenyans petitioned IMF against a loan that was being given to Kenya, and 200,000 of Kenyans signed up a petition, largely in social media, and petitioning the IMF against giving Kenya a loan. And I say that again was inconsequential to the IMF, because that one wouldn't stop IMF from giving the loan. So some of the things we do online, much we speak online, really become very inconsequential. Otherwise, sometimes some of the things we speak online, as much as we have the right of expression, which is anchored in our constitution, may end up finding one being picked separately by this government and being punished in a way. So, like I said, for us to have actual revolution, we must work together. When 200,000 people signed for a petition against IMF, where were the rest of 45 plus million Kenyans? But if you ask them, they will say that we are in support. But what action are they taking? So we are not united. Not all of us can be in social media. A large number is not in social media. So we must find a way. And like I said, I don't think that a revolution will be the best recourse for purposes of the challenges we are facing here. We're given a chance after every 5 years to participate in an election. We can exercise our votes, cast our vote wisely, and pick right leaders to office, and so that and we elect a good legislature, like I said, that will take this government in place to account, so that the challenges we are complaining about, for instance, about the loans which Kenya has really acquired from international bodies, this government in place can always take the executive to account, so that the debt should not rise up to where it has reached 1.7 trillion, and as I know that it is going to be increasing more, we can do something. And again, as we continue talking about this, we should also again continue expressing our views against what we see that is not being done in the right way. For instance, you see, we are being restricted so much and told we must observe curfew, we must observe lockdown, and these regulations the government has put in place. But for instance, if a person, and one said this, that if you are in Thika and you wanted to see your sick mother at Keno, which is just a distance away, you wouldn't do that. And the best way you will do that is to fly to Ukraine and come with a flight, land in Kenya as a tourist, and then you will be very welcomed at Keno. That is the challenge we are facing. We are welcoming in very many tourists to the country, but Kenyans themselves cannot move in a very short distance across. So those are things we must observe and keep criticizing this government for doing. As much as they are welcoming tourists to the country, they are very harsh on Kenyans when they are allowing visitors to come, and they are not quarantining. You see, when we are serious about implementation of these regulations, they must be applied equally. This is not something that we must give privilege to other people and be harsh on others. When Prince Harry, he has been in the US for quite some time, isn't it? He lost his grandfather, Prince Philip. When he went back to England for purpose of attending a funeral, he quarantined. Okay, he quarantined. But is it something that we see in Kenya, for instance? Do those tourists come in? Are they quarantined like we do? If a person from a royal family is quarantined in his own country, our leaders, when they cross from one county to another, they are supposed to be quarantined. They are supposed to follow regulations which are observed. So I think we are not applying rules equally. We are being harsh on very ordinary Kenyans as opposed to people who are privileged. And so these are things we must observe, and we must bring them out every day because we have a right to do so, and our constitution gives us that right to freedom of expression. Yes.
About complying to the restrictions that have been put in place, the Nairobi Regional Commander, Mr. Kianda, James, said when he issued a statement, he said that this was done because Kenyans were not really doing what they are supposed to do. They have seen, like, we have put in place this, we want to reduce the number of cases that have been there, but Kenyans are not doing it. So we have to force them to do it by all means.
The thing
but
is,
again, to add on that, you were talking about social media, that it's not helping. Do you think if Kenyans had not taken the outcry on social media, probably Kenyans could have slept on Saturday on the road?
Yes, I have not said that social media is not helping. Social media is helping, actually. It's helping. So we must use every opportunity we have, whether it is in social media. And during that day, there were people on the ground, and they came out strongly. Yes. And I agree with the detective, the lady that came out very strongly to try and support Kenyans there and agitate for their rights during that particular time. So it's not only that we have to be on the ground. We can use every opportunity we have, whether it is social media, whether it is when you are down on the ground there. When you have a chance to speak out against something that the government is doing and you think it's not doing it in the right way, you can speak at any time and whichever means you have. So as according to the communication, I think the communication is good, and I don't oppose it, because again, as I have said, we are a country governed by laws. There can't be a policy passed by government and all of us go against it. If the policy is for our best general interest of the general public, we must support that what he said, that people are not observing. And now that the police officers of themselves have seen that they must not be high-handed in doing in enforcing this. So I think going forward now, we are seeing changes. From yesterday, what happened yesterday, you saw that they relaxed. And I think today they will relax more. And Kenyans also will know that this is something that the government is serious about. So all of us, some of these things happen so that we learn. Every day we are learning. But I support what he said about some Kenyans not being serious about following these protocols which have been given by the ministry.
There are Kenyans who are being arraigned in court today of violating the curfew rules. Shame.
Yes. Well, I'll say this to start with. A hungry man is an angry man. So in whichever case, even if we want him to follow regulations, laws put in place, there'll be a challenge for one reason. One, if you stop this individual, as I said earlier, they'll tend to react in a different way. You put your laws, you put your regulations, but the people who are there to adhere and follow them, they not want to be associated with some of these rules and regulations that are put in place. Because one, I tell you for free, Kenyans at that particular point are hungry. Kenyans at this particular point are also angry. At this particular point, they feel they're desperate. At this particular point, they feel that COVID-19 has really affected their cause. So as we speak, you are arraigning people again that are actually it's a balloon that is about to burst. So there'll be no measures, there'll be no way that will actually be able to cushion them. So to my thinking, I think as much as we want these regulations adhered to, then let's look for the best way of make sure that we are able to support these people. Let's make sure that we are able to make sure that the SMEs, the people that are doing business, they're able to get back on their foot. So that's the best way to make sure that these people will be able to adhere to the COVID-19 regulations. But without that, I expect more people to be arraigned. I expect more people to be taken to court. I expect more lawbreakers. Because at the end of the day, these people feel that their needs are not being addressed by the government. So it's upon the government also to make sure that they are able to make sure that whatever that they're putting in place, they also have a remedy towards it. So that's the best way that the government can actually be able to do. And I tell you for free that these people will be able to adhere to the rules and the regulations.
All right, in a minute because we're running out of time. Okay.
Something that is very important that we must not forget in this particular, as much as we are talking about lockdown and enforcement of curfews, the government, upon enforcing curfews and these lockdowns, should have rolled out a platform for vaccinating Kenyans, and which will have led us out of these challenges we are facing. There is no way you can lock the country and you're not doing anything about it. You lock the country, you lock people in Nairobi, but you're not doing anything about the people staying in that Nairobi. Those ones outside, not doing anything about it. There is no clear roadmap which has been drawn clearly to vaccinate Kenyans. So that is something that we must not forget to talk about as much as we emphasize on curfew. And the government of the Republic of Kenya must ensure that it has vaccinated Kenyans. It should not bring politics about medicine, the vaccine, this one. They should ensure that they vaccinate Kenyans across the country and ensure that the money that has been set aside for purposes of cautioning these Kenyans is used appropriately, because we can't keep on borrowing loans from outside and we do not, Kenyans themselves don't see what that loan is doing. They need to see, this is the time that they need to see being helped by this government that keeps on borrowing every day. And we saw yesterday, the Ministry of Treasury, the Treasury Minister was saying that actually there is a communication that we understand Kenya borrow 2 billion a day and pays 2 billion again on the same day. We use 2 billion and borrow
2 billion.
You see, that is a challenge. And Kenyans are not, their eyes are open. They are seeing that's what I'm saying. We're not applying this money appropriately to assist Kenyans at all levels of government. That is something that we must not forget to say in this particular interview.
All right. Thank you so much. Jiken Sangura, in a minute.
Really want to say this. I think it's high time. Our government really needs to be accountable. It really needs to make sure that it allows the public to participate. The public participation level should be up. They should also make sure that they are able to engage the public on any decisions also they are about to take. I understand that there are times we call for those serious and drastic decisions to be made without much consultation. But at this particular point, to where we are, we need Kenyan solutions as per where we are. Knowing that we only have an economy that is of around 3 trillion Kenya shillings. So it tells you from where we are and where we sit, we only have an economy that runs on 27 billion US dollar. So in a nutshell, what I'm saying is we need to create a solution that is tailor-made for Kenyans.
Okay.
That is what we need. 2, let also the government take this criticism well. Let them understand there are issues that are being raised by Kenyans and they really need to be addressed. Because at the end of the day, a fetus that fears criticism is never born. So that is what I want to say. And much of it, expect them again to make sure that Kenyans out here, their issues and whatever that they are raising are also addressed.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming through and having this discussion. That's a wrap up for On Bottom Line KE on Lookup TV. I have been your host, Jupiter Mayaka. But do you think the government should review the curfew implementation? Thank you for watching. Goodbye for now.